Hey guys, so today I'm going to be telling you about this new film called The Theory of Everything. It is a film biopic about the life of Stephen Hawking, who was famous physicist throughout the years. And for those who really don't know a lot about Stephen Hawking, not only does this movie cover his life and his romantic relationship with his first wife that he had, but it also shows you kind of why he became this physicist. He also is known for going through a condition where he really can't move any part of his body too well. He also has a computer system attached to his electronic wheelchair that helps speaks for him basically. And he's also known for going to places like NASA and other places of that nature where he's known for like sharing information on black holes and theories on outer space and if time travel was possible, how we could possibly be able to do it. So he's done a lot of different theories, and he's very well known for this. And you'll see throughout the course of this film that a lot of these colleges that he went to and things of that nature um, really kind of got the word out that he kind of figured these things out, and through obviously other professors' helps and everything. But he was able to figure out most of this stuff on his own, but also through the people that he got close with throughout the years. But for the most part, guys, the theory of everything is also very much about, like I was just stating earlier, basically his relationship with his first wife and how that really helped him out. How she was kind of this caretaker throughout the course of his life, and how she was both his friend and the wife, and how she really had to be there for him to really take care of him. And they had kids together, and so she expected him to be this father figure. And so basically, it's the life of Stephen Hawking. And so the film not only is a romance story about him and his wife, but it's also his science career as well, to kind of sum it all up for you. But I really enjoyed the theory of everything, you guys. I think what really stood out, and I can probably go right into my pauses right here, is Eddie Redmayne's performance as Stephen Hawking and Felicity Jones's performance as Stephen Hawking's wife. The performances here, especially from the two of them, are just really top notch. I would really love to see an Oscar nomination for the two of them. Eddie Redmayne specifically, if I can say his name right. You really believe that he is Stephen Hawking throughout this movie. He really just transforms into this character, transformed into the person that we all know him as in real life. Just really terrific performance here. I did see in the credits that I guess there was some prosthetic work. However, they did it, they really made it look like that Eddie Redmayne was in this condition and that he was Stephen Hawking that we were looking at throughout the course of the film. So just huge thumbs up. Both gave terrific performances here. Another big positive I have about the theory of everything is the caretaker portion of Stephen Hawking's life. I liked how not only was the wife a good caretaker for him, he also had this nurse that was there at his home that basically took care of him, make sure that he can speak correctly, and when he did lose his voice box, as we do know him as now, kind of how he was able to manipulate this machine device and be able to communicate through this computer-like machine. And just the caretaker portion was just very strong in this film. It just really goes to show, and for those who've seen Life itself, the life about Roger Ebert that was turned to a documentary, the parts with Chaz Ebert being able to take care of Roger Ebert when he lost his jaw and things like that. A lot of that vibe I think was very much carried into the theory of everything when Stephen Hawking's wife Jane took care of him. Kind of how he went from this person who was able to do everything on his own to losing his ability to walk, losing his ability to talk, and losing his ability to kind of use his hands and feet, and just it was the caretaker portion of this film I think was done masterfully. It was just really well done. The film is also dramatic and tragic when it needs to be. There is some scenes, I'm not going to lie, where when Steven loses a very essential part of communicating with people, or loses a way of being able to hold on to things with his own hands and things like that. It really is tragic, and it really makes you kind of gasp and be surprised at as what's happening to him. I mean, he really lost his ability to do all this stuff, and so he kind of figured these theories out just at the right time before this really tragic condition happened to him. And like I said, the film gets dramatic and tragic. when it really needs to, and it really works well when it does happen. I like how the film also makes the point that human emotion is truly universal. There's scenes in this film too where it's already Stephen Hawking in the wheelchair and him communicating through his computer, but you definitely see the emotion in him when he's sad or when he's happy or when something is funny to him. And I really like how this film really makes the point that human emotion truly is universal. There's just sometimes we can just read people the way it is, and no matter what condition they in, and no matter what's going on in their life, sometimes you can just tell when they're sad or when they're happy or when they think something is funny. And I think this film just does a terrific job with this and really showed that Stephen Hawking was not only just a really smart guy who was able to figure out these science theories. He really was like you and me and like everybody else, and he fell in love, and he had a life, and he did things for fun, and he did things on the side outside of doing all the science stuff. And I just really like how the film carries human emotion throughout its runtime. The film also has a very effective use of science. Going into this film, I was kind of worried, if I wasn't going to be able to understand things, if I wasn't, if Stephen Hawking throughout the movie was going to explain his theories in a way where, us as the audience would be able to understand what he's talking about. I think it does very good with that, and I think it also does a good job making sure that it does sound like something that someone of Stephen Hawking's status and prestige would say in front of a live audience, in let's say NASA or a college of some kind. So just very effective use of science. It really is believable, and even if they did have to make a little bit of things up just to make it help make more sense in this film, they did it in such a way where it's pretty believable. So, but like I said, they probably did use the real theories of Stephen Hawking, and however they did it, it was just a very effective use of science, I thought. For the negatives of this film, they really don't get into detail on how Stephen Hawking was able to live such a long life. It's even revealed right away in the trailer, even before I saw the film. And for those of you who are going to go see the film as well, so it's not really even a spoiler. But in the trailer, even they said that Stephen Hawking was probably only going to live an additional 2 years after getting this condition, and the film never gets into detail about um, how exactly he lived past those 2 years, because there's even times too where he lost his own voice box in the movie, and that's when they really knew for sure that he was probably going to go very soon after that. But the film never goes into detail on did he have to take certain nutrients, did they have to give him certain medicines, did he just eat well and drink the right stuff and exercise with what conditions he had. The film doesn't go into detail on as to how exactly he was able to live all this time, because he's still alive to this day, and in his 70s, I believe. And it's just, they really don't get into detail on how he was able to survive all this. And I really wish they did, but for some odd reason, they skipped those details for some reason. One negative I had about this film, and it's great that the editor of this film seemed to like the Rocky films, but as a result, I felt that there was one too many uses of poetic shorthand. For those who don't know what that is, that's when a filmmaker can show you a series of images, play music in the background, and you get this sense of like this over time feeling, like this person's going through this thing over time, and they're going to grow through this and things like that. There's a lot of times where instead of giving us, actually seeing certain things play out, they give you like these vintage video things with, Stephen Hawking growing up with his kids, or Stephen Hawking going through his wedding, or, him just spending time with his wife and somebody's filming it. But that's kind of a negative though, because we really don't get to know his kids. We really don't get to, once he's married, they really don't get into his personal life stuff as much as they did earlier in the film. So once again, I think the poetic shorthand portion of the filmmaking style in this was probably a little bit overused, a little bit too much. I think maybe just the wedding could have done this and could have used that cool vintage video thing that they were using. But I think after a while they use it so much to the point where they're starting to skip important story details and skipping important parts of the life of Stephen Hawking's life. And I really wish that they could have gotten a little bit more into detail about that. I also thought the second act of the film had a little bit of slow pacing. It wasn't like really bad pacing, but it got to the point where the first act and the third act had just the right kind of pacing, and I think in the second act it spent a little bit too much time with things that I think they didn't really need to go into detail on. Because, like I said, they skipped out on certain details that I think was pretty essential to the life of Stephen Hawking, and I don't really understand why the second act had to be so slow compared to the first and third act. And then my last negative is until the last portion of the film, I would say closer to the third act, we really don't get any sense of when exactly does certain things take place, and it's not until towards the end of the film where I met Steven here or Steven discovered this at this year, and it's really not until towards the end of the film we realize well this happened in the '60s and this happened in the '70s and this happened in the late '70s and before that, there's no sense of subtitling saying 1973 or whatever, and I think the film could have used that. I don't know how much research they did before going into this movie, but I think it would have been a nice little touch if they did have like the year when something significant came up. Just a little nitpick I think they could have worked on. But overall, guys, I think The Theory of Everything is a great film, and I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. I really do hope Eddie Redmayne and Felicity Jones do get nominated for their performances from the Film Academy. A really top-notch performances. Really wish them the best when it comes to them getting nominated. Like I said, 8.5 out of 10 for me. This film is very much worth checking out, specifically for the performances. But like I said, don't go into this film knowing that it's going to be one of the best films of the year. So overall, very good film. If you want to know more about Stephen Hawking and if you're big into science, The Theory of Everything is very much worth your time.